Hey guys, Skellington80 here. So we are back for day 12 of 25 Days of Monsters, and today we bring you the story of the Headless Horseman from The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving in 1820. The category is undead. Base of operations is Tarrytown, New York. When is the late 18th century? Powers, acephalous, equestrianism, riding a horse while headless. His weakness is reality. It'll make sense in a bit. And the most dastardly deed is head hucking. The fear factor is 2, which kind of makes sense, even though it's relative from person to person. Once again, Tim Seibert delivers a perfect illustration on the title page. I mean, just look at that. I should probably start writing scripts for these videos, since I tend to stumble over my words a lot, but whatever. What I'm saying is I really like the illustrations. You have heard me say it multiple times, so I don't know why I'm repeating it. Alright, the superstitious people of New York's Hudson Valley spoke of many ghosts, but the commander-in-chief of all the powers of the air around there was the most feared spirit in all of the New York state, the ghost of a Hessian from the American Revolution. The Hessians were German soldiers hired by the British, and you may recognize them from the Declaration of Independence, which complains of armies of foreign mercenaries sent to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny. This particular Hessian did not complete anything. A stray patriot cannonball removed his head in battle, and his ghost began riding through the forests near Tarrytown in nightly quest of his head. They called him the Headless Horseman of Sleepy Hollow. And who should blunder upon that headless fiend one night but Ichabod Crane? Crane was a superstitious, gossipy schoolteacher who had been living a peaceful life in Sleepy Hollow, New York, which was, after all, one of the quietest places in the whole world. Now, Ichabod already had a problem. He had fallen in love with a local heiress named Katrina von Tassel, and Katrina was also being wooed by a man named Abraham Brom Bones Van Brunt. Brom Bones was everything Ichabod was not. While Ichabod Crane looked like a scarecrow eloped from a cornfield, Brom Bones was a titan of strength, broad-shouldered and double-jointed. Ichabod was scared of spooks, goblins, and terrors of the night, while spirits were just a joke to Brom Bones. Most everything was a joke to him, and the only thing he loved more than a rustic brawl was a madcap prank. So when Katrina started to favor meek Ichabod Crane, Brom Bones vowed to do something about it. Not get her flowers, not start acting like a decent upstanding citizen. Oh no, that was not Brom Bones' way. On the night of a party at the Van Tassel's home, the guests stayed up late swapping ghost stories. Stories about funeral trains and mourning cries and wailings heard near the enormous tulip tree where the British spy Major John Andre was captured. Stories about a mysterious woman in white of Raven Rock who was often heard to shriek on winter nights before a storm, having perished there in the snow. And especially stories about a galloping figure with no head. It was midnight, the very witching time of the night, before Ichabod mounted his crane. No, darn it. Yeah, he just rode a freaking construction crane home. Yeah, that totally existed during this time period. I'm sorry. Ichabod Crane mounted his horse and left for home. Oh dear. This whole encounter would have never happened had he just had a construction crane. He could have just run the horseman over. Oh dear, that's funny. Oh boy. Okay, let's get back on track. Never before had the woods seemed so filled with terrors and hauntings for poor Ichabod. He was a superstitious man, and to a good imagination, the dark woods on a dark night were filled with creaks and moans and half-glimpsed ghosts and goblins. And then one figure, which Ichabod saw plainly. The figure of a man, muffled in a cloak, riding a black horse. It would not be accurate to say that the figure had no head, but the head was not on his shoulders as it should have been. Better to say that the figure had a head, and he carried it in his hands. Well, that was enough for Ichabod. He rode away in terror, but the Headless Horseman followed him. The chase proceeded through the woods, and Ichabod strove to reach a bridge near the church, where legend says the Hessian ghost would always disappear. Far from disappearing, though, when the horseman reached the bridge, he threw his head at Ichabod, knocking him from his horse. Ichabod took to his feet and didn't stop running until he reached Connecticut. He forgot all about Katrina and was never seen near Tarrytown again. The townsfolk decided that Ichabod had been carried off by the galloping Hessian. It was not that the Hessian had chased Ichabod to a neighboring state, however. The rider that pursued him was none other than Brom Bones, with his face concealed inside his cloak, a pumpkin done up to look like a severed head. And that was the only thing he threw at Ichabod. Brom married Katrina and presumably spent the rest of his life acting like a giant jerk, but he kept his secret and never confessed to his one-night role as the Headless Horseman, who was never seen riding again. I mean, that's not as depressing as Frankenstein, which, as you recall, we read on day... Hang on, I'm losing count again. Yep, day 8, I was correct. First time. But that's just kind of sad. I just feel bad for poor Ichabod. You know what would have been funny? If there was a plot twist where the horseman was real and he was insulted that Brom had sort of dressed himself up like him without his permission and had just chased him off into the forest. Oh boy. That would have been funny. I don't know. Yeah, I just want to see him get his just desserts for ruining what could have been a perfectly happy marriage. Okay, so we're almost done here. Beyond the book. What's on Ichabod's shelf? Washington Irving, with dry wit, notes that Ichabod Crane was esteemed by the women as a man of great erudition, for he had read several books quite thorough. But when people searched his house, they only found three. Cotton Mather's History of New England Witchcraft. Cotton was a famous 17th century Puritan preacher who popularized the Salem witch trials. So that means he was a jerk. He never wrote a book with this title, though he certainly wrote some books with similar topics, including The Wonders of the Invisible World, 1693. A New England Almanac. Almanacs were very popular in the 18th and 19th century America, serving as calendars, weather predictors, and even clocks. The hours of sunrise and sunset every day gave many people their only clue as to what time it was, and they also included short stories, jokes, and poems. A book of dreams and fortune-telling. This one's pretty dumb. As far as great erudition goes, you'd be better off swapping books with Frankenstein's monster. And if you don't know what I mean, just go back to day 8 and skip to the Beyond the Book section. Alright. Scooby-Doo endings. In Scooby-Doo cartoons, the ghost often turns out to be some guy in a mask looking to scare people. Yeah, ghosts aren't real in that universe until they are, I'd say. This plot structure is taken directly from early Gothic stories, many of which set up a supernatural situation, only to reveal that the whole thing was a trick later on. Anne Radcliffe may have invented this plot point. In The Mysteries of Udolpho, 1794, the ghosts that terrify the characters are hoaxes made by pirates who tried to have it believed that the chateau was haunted so no one would find the loot they hid there. Sometimes the ghost is just a misunderstanding. In Thomas Love Peacock's Nightmare Abbey, 1818, a ghastly figure shrouded in white drapery with the semblance of a bloody turban on its head that terrorizes the abbey turns out to be the steward sleepwalking. The shroud and bloody turban wear a sheet and red nightcap. I mean, how dumb do you have to be to mistake a sleepwalking guy for a ghost? Even if it's in dim lighting, you have to notice at one point or another that, hey, that guy is the master of the house and he's just sleepwalking. How can you be that dumb? Then again, people in these stories are often a little stupid, so I wouldn't blame them. Actually, I do blame them because that's stupid. Alright, with that being said, we have reached the end of the video. I do hope to see you for day 13. I'm just going to warn you, tomorrow things are going to get pretty crazy because the story we have in store is weird. I'm not going to tell you what it is, so you'll just have to stay in suspense. So, with that being said, I wish you a happy Halloween and hope to see you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in, and bye!